All right, this is Chapter 10, Prediction for Secondary Prevention. All right, predicting future offending. Boy, if that could be done perfectly, that would be amazing on a lot of levels. All right, because making prediction about future behavior is tough to do. Number one, you need to start by looking at what is being predicted. Two, you need to look at the choice of the proper variable for use in the analysis and the degree of accuracy in the predictions, because wrong predictions can have dire consequences. You can have false positive predictions, and you can have also false negative predictions. That's where an individual is either predicted to do something in the future, but it's not found out to act in that fashion, or you declare a person is not a future threat, but the individual does engage in the negative behavior later. When you think about predicting future offending, a movie, if you haven't seen it, Minority Report with Tom Cruise, really talks about doing just that. Types of prediction. All right, we have clinical prediction, which is based on a rater's evaluation of an individual. There's training and disposition of the individual rater that often determines what variables and factors are important. And there's a great deal of tendency for false determination, both positive and negative. There was a study in the 70s that found agreement between two psychiatrists that could not be found more than about 50 to 60% of the time, because prediction deals with making judgments. All right, then there's actuarial predictions. There's going to be a really interesting video that you're going to need to watch after this slide presentation. I'll give you the link in a minute, that really goes into explaining actuarial predictions, which is making predictions based on known parameters in the data. It's setting of rates by the insurance industry, and the key is the identification of the appropriate predictive items. All right, so here is a link to what does an actuary do, learning from the experts. And it's pretty interesting as far as explaining the insurance industry and actuarial prediction. Another movie that comes to mind is called, I think it's called Class Action. It's an older movie, but it talks about actuarial prediction, and it really explains it really well. And it's kind of sad what ends up happening in that, but was true. All right, actual predictions continued. U.S. Parole Commission salient factor score. So there are 7 items predictive of past success on parole. 1 point was awarded for each item characterizing an individual, and the higher number of points were viewed as better risks, and subsequently the prisoner received parole and release. Here's an example of salient factor score items. You can pause here to look at them when they were determining parole and whether a prisoner would be released on parole. All right, actuarial predictions continued. There's no single best method for constructing scales, these types of scales. There is a level of error, but it's smaller than found in clinical studies, and there is use of different predictive techniques that do not always appear to alter the results. So actuarial prediction is inappropriately in that it attempts to predict individual behavior based on group data. This is also called the ecological fallacy. Therefore, it's not possible basically to input the behavior of a single person from the activity of a larger group. So just because a group does something doesn't mean the individual person is going to do something. All right, risk factors are indicators of who may, and that word may, become deviant in the future, and can be broken down into various categories. So you have typical groupings found in the literature are, and this is more talked about in your textbook, but they are family, peer factors, community influences, psychological personality factors, biological risks. I'm sure all these sound familiar if you really think about it. Familiar in the fact that those are certain things that do create risk factors and prediction for a future in crime. All right, predicting places and events. There are what we call hotspots for crime. They are small places in which the occurrence of crime is so frequent that it's highly predictable, at least over a 1-year period, that crime's going to occur there. Here's a really short video. It's only a little over 2 minutes, and it talks about a new tactic for crime hotspots and what to do about crimes that occur in those small places. All right, hot products. We already talked about the craved products. in a previous chapter, and they are items that attract attention and are targeted by thieves. If you go to any drugstore or Bimart or Walmart, you'll find those items are now generally put up behind a counter where you have to get a clerk to assist you, so you just can't take them off a shelf and steal them. But they have value, they have inertia. Inertia meaning you can hide them easily. They're visible, only at risk if it's visible to the suspect. They're accessible. And then remember those Crave products, and I'm not going to read what that is, but there are other hot products. All right, repeat victimization. So people or places being victimized at least a second time within some period of time subsequent to the initial victimization event. And Farrell offered 6 types of repeat victimizations. So those were target, tactical, temporal, spatial, crime type, and offender. So here's the characteristics of each and examples of each. And this is typology of repeat victimization. And here is a time frame for repeat victimization. So pretty interesting that for an offense such as domestic violence, they've looked at 15% are repeated within 24 hours, 25% within 5 weeks. Bank robbery, if you look at the highest, one is residential burglary, 51% within a month. And then you had non-residential burglary, so that might be breaking into a commercial property or even a car. That's 43% within a month. And the highest was property crime in schools in England. So pretty crazy. All right, predicting place and events. Continuing on repeat victimization. So there are explanations for repeat victimization, such as risk heterogeneity, which suggests that the prior victimization or other factors, IDs, victim, or location as an appropriate target for more crime, or you have event dependency, that is the same offender commits another offense based on past experiences. So they know, hey, I broke into this house, they never called the police, no one ever came and found out I stole whatever I stole, so let's do it again. Or same with a business. All right, implications for crime prevention. So where do we focus our prevention efforts? Here's kind of circles that we look at overlapping as far as hot spots, hot products, repeat offenders. Where do we focus it? And as you can see, they kind of all overlap. It's not just in one place. Implications for crime prevention. So IDing persons who are headed for future juvenile or adult criminality. Allows crime prevention techniques to have a chance to work. We do want to try to predict future behavior, but unfortunately that does have false predictions. Prediction of places, times, and targets, and looking at things from the perspective of the victim offer insight into the where and when of the prevention efforts. All right, that ends this chapter. We'll see you for the next chapter.